Welcome to On Point Pro Wrestling with your host, John Mattera, where I give you my Monday Night Raw and Smackdown reviews and tell you what you should be excited for and what you can skip over if you're short on time. And this podcast is associated with Sports Skillet Radio, which can be heard from 11 to 1 p.m. every Sunday on 9:20 a.m. Here, Jeff, Jay, and Kelly give their professional opinions on all the hot topics in sports. And we're going to get started right off going over Monday Night Raw, which started off with a historic announcement where Mr. McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Triple H were in the middle of the ring and announced an all-women's pay-per-view that is going to take place in October. And let me tell you how historic this actually is, because as somebody who's been watching wrestling, honestly, his whole life, he's always seen the WWE Divas, as what they used to be called, as something that was very skippable. How they would be portrayed would be more as just kind of a model than an actual professional athlete. And now you look at them and they're main eventing pay-per-views. They're having all gimmick matches such as Hell in a Cell, Money in the Bank, Iron Man matches, and matches like that which have more stakes to them. And they're quite honestly stealing the show, like Triple H said in his lovely speech mentioning the WWE Women's Division when he called them forward in the roster and revealed to them what the plans were going forward for their division. And not only is it going to be the superstars on the main roster that will be featured on this pay-per-view, but the WWE women from NXT and women from the old days, Trish Stratus, Lita, and of course Beth Phoenix, have been announced as three of the legendary women that will be at this pay-per-view. And quite honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And of course, the finals of the Mae Young Classic will also be taking place at that event. And right after the historic announcement that really shook up the wrestling world, we had Elias trying to come out and perform for the crowd, but was interrupted by Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, which kicked off the Raw Tag Team title rematch from Extreme Rules, seeing the Woken Warriors Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy go up against the B Team, Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. Quite honestly, this was really a nothing match. I really personally wish this feud would end. I wanted it to be over when the B Team actually took the tag team title belts off of the Woken Warriors at Extreme Rules, and this match was of course really nothing. The B Team got another fluke win when Bo Dallas pushed Bray Wyatt into Matt Hardy, and then Curtis Axel was able to roll him up for the 3 count. And then of course after the match we got the Woken Warriors attacking the B Team, and this feud is unfortunately going to continue. Going into SummerSlam, I really wanted to see teams like the Revival and the Authors of Pain be inserted into the tag team division, but it looks like we're not going to be getting that. We're going to be getting this more comedy feud between the Woken Warriors and the B Team moving forward towards that pay-per-view. Overall, I thought this match was very, very skippable, and if you're short on time, you can definitely skip this segment, but make sure you watch the announcement of what is being called the Evolution pay-per-view, which is the all-women's pay-per-view taking place in October. That is a monumental segment that is a must-watch. But this match you can definitely skip and move on to what's going on later on in the night. And after that, we have Finn Balor chatting with Chad Gable backstage when he notices that a lot of his equipment, his suitcase and then his leather jacket, is being carried by these people he doesn't know. And he stops one of the guys who's carrying his leather jacket and asks them, "What are you doing with my stuff?" And he says that Constable Corbin has advised him that he has a new locker room, brand new just for him, his own personal locker room. And when Finn Balor goes to check out what that locker room is, it is a little playhouse, because over the past couple weeks, Constable Corbin has been making fun of Finn Balor's size. And when Finn Balor does not react the way Constable Corbin wants him to, Constable Corbin makes a match for tonight, which some people may consider an NXT alumni dream match, where it's former NXT champion Finn Balor going up against former NXT champ Drew McIntyre. I personally think that it was a great announcement for the night, which made me pretty excited to see the outcome of that match and what that was going to be. Overall, I'm getting a little sick of Baron Corbin making fun of Finn Balor's size, because the more he says it, the more the fans are going to realize that, wow, Finn Balor is actually a lot smaller than a lot of the bigger competitors. How can I believe and suspend disbelief that Finn Balor could actually topple guys such as Bobby Lashley, Braun Strowman, and Roman Reigns? Honestly, I think they should just drop that whole "you're short, you're small" thing and just have Constable Corbin and Finn Balor have a match, a good old-fashioned heel and face match where Baron Corbin will do anything he can to beat Finn Balor. But overall, I was excited for the announcement of Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor later on in the night. And then we had Sasha Banks and Bayley in a backstage interview, which showed them seeming to get along, saying that they've rekindled their friendship over the past couple of weeks. And this went into their match against two unknown female superstars, where of course they got the win, and they seemingly are getting along now. And if you're interested in this Sasha Banks and Bayley feud, I think this is a must-watch. It is showing them actually trying to mend the fences of their friendship, but I'm just looking forward to, once again, this friendship being torn apart. And if that happens, it's going to be great, and if not, then I think this whole Sasha Banks and Bayley storyline has just been a complete waste of time, unless they are building up to a women's tag team division, which I think would be pretty exciting going into this all-women's pay-per-view called Evolution that is happening, of course, in October. That was announced earlier in the night. Overall, I think, as I said before, if you are interested in the Sasha Banks and Bayley feud, it is something you should be checking out, but if you're not interested in the feud, it's definitely skippable. And then we have Elias coming out once again trying to perform, but then Braun Strowman cuts him off and arrives, making his way down to the ring, where he says that no matter who wins tonight's match, Lashley or Roman, he has the Money in the Bank briefcase to where he will eventually be the Universal Champion. And to cut Braun Strowman off, Kevin Owens comes out and just cuts a great promo saying how Braun Strowman's a bully and his kids are scared for him to go to work because he doesn't want his dad to get beaten up by the big man. His little boy and his little girl don't look at their father the same because of the beating Braun Strowman has been putting on Kevin Owens the past couple of weeks. And Kevin Owens warns Braun Strowman and says, your nightmare has just begun. When Jinder Mahal's music hits, makes his way down to the ring and tries to get Braun Strowman to get control of his temper and get control of his anger, where then Braun Strowman says he wants everybody in the WWE Universe to close their eyes and then repeat after him. And instead of saying Shanti, which Jinder Mahal wanted Braun Strowman to say so desperately, Braun Strowman says, get these hands, and then delivers a beating to Jinder Mahal's little crony Sunil Singh. And overall, I thought this segment was something that was very entertaining, kept my eyes glued to the TV. I thought it was funny how Jinder Mahal was trying to get Braun Strowman to calm down and just couldn't. It was a good comedy segment and really showed Braun Strowman's personality. I also thought that the Kevin Owens promo was something that's really furthering along the storyline between these two. And later on in the night, it was announced that Kevin Owens will be facing Braun Strowman in a match where no matter how Kevin Owens wins, he will get the Money in the Bank briefcase from Braun Strowman. I thought that this is a great way to further the storyline and gives Kevin Owens more motivation to keep going after the monster Braun Strowman, because he can get his Universal title back, something he's wanted ever since he lost it to Goldberg all the way back at Fastlane before WrestleMania 33. I can't wait to see how this feud plays out, and I'm interested to see if Kevin Owens actually gets his hands on that briefcase. And then the next couple segments of Monday Night Raw really could not hold my attention. The first one being the match between Ronda Rousey's best friend Natalya facing off against another veteran in the women's division, Mickie James. This was really a nothing win and had Mickie James go over Natalya. This was something that was very skippable during this Monday Night Raw, and if you're short on time, definitely skip over this. It really furthered no feuds, just really got the woman on the TV to keep reiterating that the women's pay-per-view is happening in October, and really was a nothing match. You can definitely skip it. It furthered no storylines, and it was just a classic one-on-one singles match between two women in the ring. And then we had the Authors of Pain come out and cut a promo saying that they want more competition. Anybody but Titus Worldwide come down to the ring because they're just done with Titus Worldwide. They already went over them and beat them. They want more competition, better competition. And of course, Titus Worldwide makes their way down to the ring and the two teams get into a brawl where Titus Worldwide, Titus O'Neil, and Apollo Crews actually get the upper hand over the Authors of Pain, clearing the ring. And this really just makes the Authors of Pain look bad because Titus Worldwide is of course more of a comedy team and more of a team that is used to elevate the other tag teams in the division. And Titus Worldwide being able to get over at all in any way over the Authors of Pain really makes them look bad compared to where they were in NXT, really being that monstrous killer tag team that it was really meant something. It really meant something huge for a tag team that was able to topple them. And now they're really not able to find their groove on Monday Night Raw, and I want them to do more. I want to see them in the main event tag team title scene. And then we had Tyler Breeze facing off against Mojo Rawley once again, where Mojo Rawley just simply destroyed him, and the WWE is still not giving Mojo Rawley higher level competition such as Bobby Roode, such as Seth Rollins, and it really leaves Mojo Rawley just spinning his wheels, just facing off against these jobbers that really mean nothing to the overall storylines in the WWE. WWE that are going on right now. Mojo Rawley, in my opinion, has a lot more to offer than just squashing people like Tyler Breeze and squashing people like No Way Jose. In my opinion, he's shown a lot of fire over the past couple weeks and is really able to get over as a bad guy or as a heel. I want to see him, of course, as I repeated and said last week, I want to see him over more competition and face more higher level competition such as Seth Rollins, such as Kevin Owens, such as Sami Zayn when he returns. So really establish him as a player in the mid-card in the WWE on the Monday Night Raw scene. And then we had the match I was looking forward to the most tonight, Drew McIntyre facing off against Finn Balor with Dolph Ziggler at ringside. And this match got started off straight away with Balor attacking Drew McIntyre with some quick kicks until McIntyre cut him off and just started laying the beat down on him. But of course, Finn Balor ended up making a little bit of a comeback. The two went back and forth until there was some interference where Ziggler interfered and hurt Finn Balor in the middle of the match, causing a disqualification. Now that was pretty disappointing to me since I was really looking forward to these two NXT alumni, two former NXT champions going head to head and seeing a definitive victor in this match, but unfortunately that was not the case. And as Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler try to make their way backstage, Kurt Angle comes out and channels his inner Teddy Long, who is notorious for making tag team matches when he was the general manager of SmackDown, and makes a tag team match where it is Finn Balor and Seth Rollins, two old rivals who have a lot of history together, facing off against Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler in a tag team match. And this match got started off straight away just like the singles match between Finn and Drew started, and this was a great back and forth match with four of the best performers on Monday Night Raw right now, which saw Seth Rollins perform the curb stomp on Dolph Ziggler for the 1-2-3, seeing him and Balor victorious over the two heels on Monday Night Raw. This match stole the show, in my opinion, was the best match on Monday Night Raw this week, even over the main event, which we'll get into later on. I mean, you can't really go wrong when you have Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler teaming up, who have been awesome paired together since Drew McIntyre has been called up post-WrestleMania, and of course facing off against Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, other two great performers. You can never go wrong when these four are in the mix. Thought it stole the show, and I can't wait to see Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler have their rematch for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. I think that match will be the blow-off of the feud and really put a definitive stamp on who's the better man between those two. Overall, great segment, great match, definitely not skippable, something you should be watching and have your eyes full attention and glued to the TV for. And then we had Ember Moon facing off against Liv Morgan once again in really a nothing match to showcase the woman leading up to that pay-per-view in October. And of course, Ember Moon goes over Liv Morgan and really should end the feud. She's already beaten both members of the Riot Squad who are not injured, and realistically this should end. Ember Moon should go and face more quality opponents who have been former champions such as Nia Jax, who have been established women, maybe such as Mickie James, such as Natalya, to really establish herself in the women's division on Monday Night Raw. She is a former NXT Women's Champion after all and deserves to be having more quality matches and quality opponents later on going into the SummerSlam season. I think that Ember Moon has a lot of fire and has a great character that can really get over with a lot of the fans. She just needs to be showcased in a higher feud with higher profile opponents to really establish her in the women's division, and I'm looking forward to that. I do think that this is just the beginning. They're heating her up before she's being able to be elevated, and they want to get these feuds with Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss out of the way before they can really elevate her to a higher status. And then we had Elias coming out, finally able to perform for that Cincinnati crowd, just running them down. But before he did that, of course, he advised them to go check out his debut EP, Walk with Elias, found on iTunes and Spotify, which honestly I would advise you guys to check out if you're an Elias fan. It is just hysterical and leaves you wondering how he's actually very talented at playing the guitar when this is just a character on TV. It really makes you appreciate Elias for everything he does and how he's just such a jerk to the audience. I definitely recommend checking that out. And right before he was able to finish his performance running down Cincinnati, Lashley comes out, the first one down to the ramp for this main event, and then Roman Reigns comes down, of course, to the crowd just booing him as always. And these two started off locking horns and just having a big man match, which was honestly slightly better than the match they had at Extreme Rules. I loved the near fall where Bobby Lashley eventually hit the spear on Roman Reigns, and just a lifeless kick out by Roman Reigns for the near fall, which had the crowd completely shocked. They thought that was it, and I did, of course, myself. And then Roman Reigns eventually hit the spear back on Bobby Lashley, pinning him for a 1-2-3 for a great main event on Monday Night Raw. Roman Reigns continues to impress me in the ring, having pretty quality matches week in and week out. I think that Roman Reigns' criticism is fair and unfair. I think I understand why the fans boo him, because they're being shoved down their throats as the next John Cena, as the next Superman of the WWE. But honestly, his matches are great. He's improving more and more on the mic as time goes on, and honestly, you just might as well get used to him because he's not going anywhere, and try to have more of appreciation for what he can do in the ring and how he's improving week in and week out. Overall, I thought this Monday Night Raw was pretty good. There was a lot of filler in the middle with the matches with Natalya, Mickie James, and Liv Morgan and Ember Moon, but I thought this was an overall good episode of Monday Night Raw. Not better than last week, and I am looking forward to the storylines going into SummerSlam. Roman Reigns facing off against Brock Lesnar, rekindling that feud, Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler, and many other feuds that are being built up on Monday Night Raw. I thought it was a good episode, and I'm looking forward to next week. And now we're moving on to SmackDown the next night, and we get SmackDown started off with Randy Orton coming out, cutting his first heel promo since his turn at Extreme Rules and last week on SmackDown. He goes on and runs down the WWE Universe, channeling that old Randy Orton that was just a complete jerk, saying how he used to be known as the Legend Killer until he got older and realized that the fans are the ones who killed the legends. Everybody but him. He is now Randy Orton, the Legend, no longer the Legend Killer, ready to take out anybody who's in his way. Overall, this promo was something that I just enjoyed so much. I was listening to every word Randy had to say, and I'm completely interested and invested in his new Legend character, the Legend that the fans have not been able to kill. And honestly, I'm excited to see Randy Orton be a heel again. Over the past couple years, he's just been a regular babyface who's just been more of a nostalgia act than somebody who's been able to build a character as a face and as a good guy. Randy Orton as a bad guy has always been better, and I can't wait to see what the WWE has in store for him going forward. Then we're moving on to the next match, which was a great match on SmackDown. Rusev facing off against the newly WWE SmackDown debut Andrade Cien Almas, who's been impressive since he's debuted on the SmackDown roster, having a great match against AJ Styles last week, coming up so close to dethroning the WWE champion, but unfortunately was made to tap out by the Calf Crusher. But he got his win back here against Rusev when they were going back and forth in the match, and Aiden English came down to ringside trying to break up the brawl that Lana and Selena Vega were having on ringside, and Selena Vega pushed Aiden English right into Lana. Rusev saw this, started arguing with Aiden English, turning around, and then was hit with a hammer lock DDT for the 1-2-3, giving Almas his win back, making him somebody who is a force to be reckoned with Selena Vega by his side. Overall, I think this did a lot to further the storyline with Lana, Rusev, and Aiden English, and of course established Cien Almas as somebody who, as I said before, is not to be messed with his advocate Selena Vega by his side. I think this is a killer act that the WWE has on their hands with Cien Almas and Vega, and I can't wait to see what kind of feuds they're going to put Cien Almas in going into SummerSlam and throughout the year. Cien Almas has impressed me since he's been brought up from NXT. He is a former NXT champion who impressed me there. He's impressing me on the main roster. Can't wait to see what he's going to have and what program he will have going into SummerSlam. And then we had R-Truth practically dying at the hands of Samoa Joe. During this match, Samoa Joe just completely beat him down and choked him out with the Coquina Clutch, just completely destroying R-Truth, showing his dominance once again on SmackDown like he did last week against Ty Dillinger. Samoa Joe, you just look at him and he is just a scary dude. He's immediately believable. He just looks like this Samoan brute who's just ready to go through anybody to get what he wants. And later on in the night, we do find out what he wants, but we'll get into that a little bit later with the WWE Championship contract signing. And then we had Asuka with what I'd like to call a rehab win after her horrible feud with Carmella. Asuka was facing off against Billie Kay, where she was able to get the quick squash win in against her, knocking her out with just a brutal kick, able to pin her for the 1-2-3. This just showed Asuka is still not to be messed with and still a force in the WWE SmackDown's women division. I do want to see what they're going to do with her going into SummerSlam now that another number one contender has been implemented to face off against Carmella at SummerSlam. Maybe a rematch with Charlotte. I am very excited to see that rematch and maybe want to see Asuka Asuka get her win back since her streak was snapped because of Charlotte at WrestleMania. Asuka still impresses me in the ring, and I want to see what the WWE has in store for her, if they have more creative things to pull out of their pocket for Asuka to really be able to establish her as a dominant woman in the history of the WWE. Then we had a backstage segment where Nakamura sends a warning to Jeff Hardy saying you will not be able to get your hands on this United States Championship and you better watch out if you try. Nakamura, since turning heel and getting out of that feud with AJ Styles, his backstage promos have just impressed me. He just seems very menacing, kind of like a snake coming to sneak up behind you, very stealth-like, and just hit you with a Kinshasa or hit you with a low blow and try to get that win over you by any means necessary. He just seems very menacing and creepy, and I'm glad he finally has a main roster title belt. Even though it's the United States Championship, he is a former Royal Rumble winner after all, was not able to get his hands on that WWE Championship during that feud with AJ Styles, but what's the next best belt on SmackDown? Of course, it's the United States Championship. In the hands of Nakamura is looking very prestigious in my opinion. I mean, it was on Jeff Hardy, it was on The Miz, it was on Randy Orton, and now it's on Nakamura. It really seems like a main event player kind of belt since it's been on all these high profile acts over the past couple months. I'm really into Nakamura lately and can't wait to see what other dastardly tactics he has in store for the WWE Universe going on throughout the year. And then we have the contract signing with AJ Styles and Paige in the middle of the ring, waiting to see who is going to be announced as the number one contender for the WWE Championship. And who makes their way down to the ring? None other than James Ellsworth. And James Ellsworth said how he had 3 wins over AJ Styles years ago and deserves a WWE Championship shot at SummerSlam. And of course, everybody along with Paige is looking at James Ellsworth saying, "You're crazy." And Paige walks him backstage, gets him taken out by security, kicks him out of the building, and while Paige is backstage, Samoa Joe comes into the ring and chokes out AJ Styles and signs the contract for the SmackDown WWE Championship match at SummerSlam. Now, I would just like to say that my body is ready for this feud. This feud is just going to be fantastic. I've been watching these two go at it since they feuded in TNA when Samoa Joe first went into that company all the way back in 2005, and you know for a fact if you watch those matches that these two can make magic in the ring. This is going to have such a high chance of stealing the show at SummerSlam, and I just want Samoa Joe to take that belt off AJ Styles, cementing him as a main eventer, as a WWE champion. In the history books, he will go down as a WWE champion. I want to see Samoa Joe, the Brute, the Samoan Brute, the Bulldozer, finally get his just due and finally get his WWE championship. I cannot wait for this match at SummerSlam. Make sure you have your eyes glued to the TV and glued to SmackDown when these two are on the television later on in the upcoming weeks, and of course during their main event match at SummerSlam. SmackDown main event, of course. Maybe won't main event the show, but I personally think that it should. If you want to send the fans home happy and the fans home with a thrilling match that thoroughly impressed them, you will put this match on last. Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles is going to be a show stealer and in talks for match of the year, in my opinion. Of course, I can't wait for this match, and I can't wait to see how these two feuds play out. And then we had Becky Lynch facing off against Carmella and defeating her, earning a shot at the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship at SummerSlam. This was a pretty basic match, the two going back and forth, but Becky Lynch eventually causing Carmella to tap out with the disarm her, earning her championship shot. I think this was a feel-good moment for anybody who's a Becky Lynch fan. She's kind of just been in the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the 4 horsewomen of the WWE. I think that now that she's able to finally, hopefully, win the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship once again, she will be able to have killer matches against the likes of Asuka and Charlotte. And I do want to see her take this belt off of Carmella. Carmella's championship run has honestly fallen a little flat for me. I'm kind of getting sick of her. She comes off as more annoying than entertaining, and I want to see Becky Lynch finally get her just due and take that championship right off of Carmella. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen between these two going forward before SummerSlam and of course in their SummerSlam championship match. And then we had the main event segment, which saw The Miz and Maurice and their newborn in the middle of the ring promoting their new reality show, The Miz and Mrs. debuting debuting on the USA Network, and they were talking about how excited they are for their new reality show, how it's going to be a hit, and that their newborn baby already accomplished more than Daniel Bryan has in his entire career just by being born into the Miz's family. And of course, Daniel Bryan was having enough, and none of the Miz's mouth, went down to the ring, broke through the security, and the Miz throws his baby at Daniel Bryan. And as Daniel Bryan looks down, realizing the baby's fake, the Miz hits him with the skull-crushing finale, and then cuts an awesome heel promo saying, "You think I would bring that baby, my blood, to this trash of a town?" And says how Daniel Bryan is always trying to steal the spotlight away from the Miz, and he's going to make his life hell. It was a great way to end off SmackDown, really making the crowd and myself look forward to these two feuding going forward, and hopefully having a match at SummerSlam, which, much like the WWE Championship match at SummerSlam, has a good chance to steal the show. I can't wait to see how this feud is going to progress, and the Miz is just looking like a huge jerk and just an egotistical man, just running down Daniel Bryan week in and week out, and I can't wait to see Daniel Bryan finally get his revenge after years and years and years of just being ran down by this one man. Overall, I thought SmackDown was a great show, and if I had to pick Raw and SmackDown, which one I would prefer this week, I would definitely pick SmackDown, since it's a shorter show. There was a lot less filler. I can only think of one match that was filler, which was the Asuka Peyton Royce match, but other than that, I thought that it was a great episode of SmackDown, a great episode of Raw as well, or a good episode of Raw, I should say. There was a little bit too much filler, but I'm looking forward to the two shows next week. I hope all you On Point people enjoyed this podcast. Thank you for listening, and of course, this podcast is associated with Sports Skillet Radio, which can be heard from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Sunday if you tune that dial to 9:20 a.m. It can also be heard on the Sports Skillet Radio app, which can be downloaded at our website, sportsskilletradio.com. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I look forward to seeing all you On Point people next week.